I've been listening to the coverage of the DeepSeek sort of freak out, and
Yeah.
it's so the wrong take. Just again, it's looking at this thing that is actually a disruptive open source being a keyword here, technology,
Yep.
and trying to treat it like something Paul Krugman would write about, right? And the reality of it is that financial journalists and political journalists are treating this like typical stories, and it's not at all. What we've seen
Explain,
here.
how should
Yeah.
we be thinking about it?
So how we should be thinking about it is a question of who gets the benefit, right? Typically, when we think about something like, like China has this technology they're developing and they're competing with the US, we're thinking about which of these countries is going to get a strategic advantage. But that assumes that they're not publishing the technology. And what we've seen in the world of AI over the last 4 years or so is that these closed source companies like Google, OpenAI, et cetera, they spend ridiculous amounts of money running ahead of the pack to prove that something is possible that everybody thought was impossible. But they brute force it, right? They just throw money at the problem until they get to the end of it. And then what happens is they've proved the thing exists and they get this PR benefit, but actually the exclusivity that it gets them of that advantage that they invented is almost nothing. And we've gone from, it was like a year that open source was behind to now open source is arguably ahead with this new R1 model, which I've been using locally, and it is indeed better than anything else out there. But the important part is I'm not paying anybody. I'm using it locally. If I wanted to start a business that used this, then I could do that. And the important part about the cost coming down and why this isn't a big deal is that the applicability of what you can do with these things is almost endless, but it's gated by cost. And so when you're talking about, there was a conversation this morning about why do we need lobbyists, right? And one of the reasons is because members don't understand most of the issues. And so the problem is, and this is a problem basically everywhere, is that expertise is expensive. And so when you have expertise, it tends to have some sort of agenda behind it that is pushing it, because otherwise it wouldn't exist. And where we're going right now, where we essentially already are, but within the next couple of years, this will be true on your phone too, is that we will be able to have intelligences that only are responsible to us because they exist entirely on our own hardware. We're not beholden to anybody else. And you could have literally, again, like take all of these bills, train an AI on it because it's so cheap to train an AI on it. It's the expert. It has no partisan to it because it's simply looking at the text and interpreting it. This is one of 1,000 things that will happen. And it is so empowering. And everyone is just looking at it through this stupid lens. It's so good. And they just can't see it.
Adam, you're not the first person to, and I say this tongue somewhat cheap, you're not the first person to say our conversation about this was dumb and ill-informed.
You are
so
not
thank
alone.
You. No,
Everybody,
I understand.
the whole
And you know
thing.
my position. Political reporters shouldn't be allowed to cover anything but politics. So, but let me ask you this. Isn't this a possible caution from what happened with China? It shows, even if they lie about how much they spent on it, it shows that they've got game here in a way that we didn't know before. Is
No,
that?
no, not at all. Again, like this is not an American thing. It's not a Chinese thing. This is an international thing. This AI thing that's going on, the innovations are happening all over. A year and a half ago, when OpenAI released another really important model, they were chased about 3 months later by a very small company in France called Mistral that released a series of fully open source models, actually less open source than the Chinese models that were just released because they released their research too. And they became a big deal for a while, and it pushed the state of the technology forward probably by 6 to 9 months faster than it would have been otherwise.
You think this is either neutral or positive for the
I
United
think this
States?
is nothing but positive. I think the neutral to negative scenario that we had was how controlled were these technologies going to be? Because there's this concept of the sword and the shield, right? So the sword is the technology being used against us. We always get that. Every technology that's developed is used against individuals because there's money to be made from that. We rarely get the shield, which is the defensive thing. And so again, like right now, you get robocalls every day, but you don't have a robo answerer that can really screen the calls for you, and it costs money to pay that guy. Right now, like I have a technology on my phone that does exactly that, and it changes everything.
Are you a pro or a hobbyist on this stuff?
I was a CEO of an AI company for a couple of years. I quit everything about 3 months ago.
That counts as pro.
Yeah, I've been in disruptive technology for about 13 years.
Thank you for all that. Stephanie Murphy, question or comment?
No, I think I think there is a positive to the Chinese demonstrating that they can do things for cheaper, and to demonstrate that our current restrictions aren't keeping them from it. Hopefully that lights a fire, because I think scarcity created innovation in China as it related to their AI systems. And now it's a challenge for our tech world to step up. And if I'm going to make a bet, I would bet on American ingenuity and American innovation every single day. And so I know that this was a bit of a wake-up call for our tech community, and I fully expect that they're going to step up to the challenge.
Lindy?
Well,
And then
Mark, I
Adam.
will say I'm a longtime investor in NVIDIA. In Jensen Huang, I trust, and I have for many, many years. I was one of the early adopters, so NVIDIA has done very well from our portfolio, I must say. But I will say this, echoing what Stephanie just said, if I were to bet, if the choice before me was communist China or Jensen Huang, who's in a capitalist society, I would choose capitalism every day of the week. Not even a question. And yesterday's reaction, I've never lost so much money in my life. Let me just say that. But I wasn't despondent at all because I knew it was overreaction, total overreaction. And yeah, I'm very, very optimistic about what the future holds. And Adam, I agree with you. You were very insightful and brilliant.